It was early last summer, in June of 2025, when I decided to do something I probably should have known better than to attempt. I'd been working long weeks without much time off, and I needed a break. So I thought I'd go out into the woods near a trailhead about an hour from my town and spend the night in my hammock. It wasn't supposed to be anything extreme, just me, a small pack, some food, and the chance to fall asleep under the stars. By the time I got to the trailhead, though it was almost completely dark, I told myself it was fine. I'd hiked this trail before. But when I parked my car, there wasn't another vehicle in sight. Just me, a gravel lot, and a looming tree line that seemed to swallow the last bit of twilight. As I was pulling my hammock and gear from the trunk, I noticed headlights behind me, bright and slow, approaching the lot. A truck. I figured maybe it was just another camper or someone checking out the trail, but instead of parking, it rolled to a stop right across from me, engine idling. I tried not to pay attention, just shouldered my pack and locked the door. But I couldn't ignore the fact that the truck didn't move. Whoever was inside sat there watching. Eventually, I stepped onto the trail and forced myself to keep walking, though my chest was tight with unease. The first 15 minutes were uneventful, just the usual forest noises, crickets, the occasional owl. But the deeper I went, the quieter it got. Too quiet. No frogs by the creek, no rustle of small animals, just silence. Then faintly, I heard it. Footsteps behind me. I froze, holding my breath. When I turned and shined my flashlight, there was nothing but trees. No movement. No eyes reflecting back. I tried to shake it off, but the sense of being followed didn't fade. It only grew. By the time I reached a clearing where I'd planned to hang my hammock, I was nearly jogging. I hurried to set it up, tying straps around the trees with clumsy fingers, all while glancing over my shoulder every few seconds. As I laid back in the hammock, trying to convince myself I was just being paranoid, I heard it again, this time much closer. A branch snapping, heavy, human. And then, a scream. My entire body froze. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't something I could explain away. Someone had screamed, maybe half a mile off. Against my better judgment, I climbed out and grabbed my light, aiming toward where it came from. The trail bent that way, and before I realized it, my legs were moving. The scream didn't come again, but something else did. A shadow, slipping between the trees. It wasn't my imagination. I saw it. A tall figure moving fast just beyond the reach of my light. I stumbled into an old shed I hadn't seen before, half rotted and sagging. Its door hung open. I stepped closer, my heart in my throat, when something shifted inside. That was enough. I bolted back down the trail, not caring about the noise I made. Branches whipped across my face. My pack thudded against my back. By the time I burst into the gravel lot, the truck I'd seen earlier was gone. My car was the only one left. But just as I reached it, I noticed something that made me stop dead. There was a handprint on the driver's side window, fresh, smeared, like someone had leaned against it to peek inside. I threw my stuff in the trunk, jumped in the driver's seat, and locked the doors. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at that dark tree line, waiting for the figure to appear. But nothing did. Even now, months later, I think about that night. I wonder who was out there. I wonder what screamed. And I wonder if whoever or whatsoever was in the woods had been waiting for me. It was the middle of July 2025. I had the house to myself for the weekend, something that used to feel like a luxury. But after this night, I don't think I'll ever feel the same about being alone again. I live in a small 2-story house. My parents left me after they moved south. It's not isolated. There are neighbors on both sides, but it backs up to a wooded strip that separates us from the highway. At night, the only sound is the occasional car in the distance or the wind moving through the trees. Friday, I came home late from work, grabbed some leftovers from the fridge, and settled onto the couch with a movie. Everything was normal until around 11:30 when I heard something upstairs. It was faint, like a step. At first, I thought maybe I'd imagined it, but then it came again. One slow creak, then another, directly above the living room. I paused the movie, muted the TV, and sat completely still. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I live alone. There was no reason for anyone to be up there. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a metal flashlight, and started up the stairs. Each step felt like it echoed through the house. When I reached the landing, I flipped the light on, but the bulb flickered once and went dead, leaving me in near darkness. I checked the bathroom. Empty. The guest room. Empty. Finally, I pushed open the door to my own bedroom. Nothing. I stood there for a while, listening. The silence was suffocating. Eventually, I convinced myself maybe the house was settling, or maybe the neighbors moving around had carried through the walls. I went back downstairs, trying to shake it off, but as soon as I sat down, I noticed something that froze me where I was. There was a shape at the top of the stairs, standing perfectly still. I spun around, but when I looked up, nothing was there, just empty railing. I don't know what possessed me, but I shouted, "Who's there?" My voice cracked halfway through. No response. I locked the front and back doors, checked the windows, and tried to go about the night, but the sense of being watched never left. Just after 2 a.m., I woke up on the couch to that same sound. Slow, deliberate steps upstairs. Only this time it was followed by something else. Breathing. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and dialed 911. As it rang, I heard movement. Fast this time, like someone running from one side of the upstairs to the other. The dispatcher answered, and I stammered out what was happening. They told me to stay on the line and that an officer was already nearby. The longest 7 minutes of my life passed before there was a knock at the door. The officer came in, checked the whole house, top to bottom. Every window locked, every door secured, nothing out of place, no one inside. Before he left, he told me it was probably just the house shifting in the heat, maybe animals on the roof, but I saw what I saw and I heard what I heard. That night, I didn't go back upstairs, and to this day, I can't sit in my own living room at night without glancing at the stairs, half expecting to see someone standing there, watching me. It was late August of this year, one of the last weekends of summer. My two friends and I had planned a simple camping trip by a small lake tucked away in a state park. Nothing extreme, just a tent, a cooler, and a fire pit by the water. By the time we set up camp, night had fallen. The fire crackled, we had a couple of drinks, and we were laughing about stupid things from high school. It was one of those perfect summer nights. But around midnight, things started to change. The first strange thing was the silence, the frogs, the insects. Everything just cut out at once. It was so abrupt that we all noticed it immediately. The only sound left was the occasional ripple on the lake. Then, from across the water, we heard footsteps. We froze, watching the opposite shore. It was too dark to see much, but we could swear someone was standing there, just out of the firelight's reach. I called out, "Hello?" But the figure didn't respond. It just shifted slightly, like it had turned towards us. My friend suggested maybe it was a ranger, but the way it stood there made my skin crawl. No flashlight, no movement, just watching. Eventually, we convinced ourselves it was nothing, maybe a trick of the shadows. We went back to the fire, trying to laugh it off, but not long after, we noticed something else. One of our backpacks had been moved. None of us had touched it, and the zipper was halfway undone, like someone had gone through it. We decided to stay awake for a while, just to be safe, but around 2 a.m., as the fire was burning low, we heard it again, the crunch of footsteps, this time right behind our tent. My friend whispered, "Do you see that?" Through the thin fabric of the tent, we saw a tall shadow move past, slow and deliberate. We held our breath, gripping whatever we could use as weapons, pocket knives, a metal water bottle. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. The footsteps faded into the woods. We didn't sleep that night. As soon as the first light broke over the horizon, we packed everything into the car and drove off. But when we got home, I noticed something in my bag that hadn't been there before. It was a Polaroid photo, blurry but clear enough to see. It was our campsite, taken from across the lake. We never went back. I work at a car dealership in my town. It's not the most exciting job, but it pays the bills. Part of my role is to close up the lot at night, check the locks, set the alarms, make sure the office lights are off. Back in July of this year, I was on one of those late shifts. I'd locked the doors, shut off most of the lights, and was about to head home when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I ignore those, but this time, something made me pick up. At first, all I heard was static. Then, after a few seconds, I realized what the sound actually was. It was me, my voice, from earlier that day, talking to a customer about financing options. I froze, listening. Whoever had called me was playing back a recording of my own voice. I hung up, unnerved, and locked my phone. But less than a minute later, it rang again. Same number. This time, when I answered, it was another recording, me laughing with a coworker at the front desk. I didn't know what to think. I walked through the office, checking each room, even the showroom floor. No one was there. I checked the security cameras, nothing but me closing up. By the time I got to my car, my phone rang again. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. And what I heard this time made my stomach drop. It was me, again. But this wasn't from earlier. It was me right then, in real time, breathing into the phone. I dropped the phone onto the passenger seat and tore out of the lot, gravel crunching under my tires. As I drove down the empty road, the phone buzzed non-stop, call after call from the same number. When I finally worked up the courage to look at the screen, there was a voicemail notification. Hands shaking, I pressed play. The message was short, just footsteps moving across the dealership floor. Then my own voice whispered, clear as day, I can see you. I slammed the phone shut and tossed it into the glove box. I don't remember much of the drive home, but when I pulled into my driveway, I swear I saw a truck parked across the street. Headlights off, someone sitting inside, watching. The next morning, I told my manager about what happened. He just shrugged it off, said maybe I was tired, maybe someone was pranking me, but no one at work would have had recordings like that unless they'd been following me around all day. I changed my number after that, but sometimes, late at night, I still think I hear my phone vibrating on the nightstand, even when it isn't there. And when it does ring, I don't answer anymore.